I was sitting in my living room on an ordinary Tuesday afternoon when my daughter-in-law Lauren burst through the front door, waving a glossy catalog like a trophy. "Sweetheart, I found a new refrigerator for $30,000, she announced, her eyes gleaming. My son Brian nodded immediately, reaching into my purse on the coffee table for my credit card. His fingers closed around a manila folder instead. He pulled it out and opened it. The color drained from his face. "Honey," he whispered to Lauren, "it says here the apartment is already hers." The silence that followed was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Brian stood there frozen, the real estate documents trembling in his hands. Lauren leaned over his shoulder, her perfectly manicured nails gripping the papers as her eyes scanned the text. I watched them both, my heart pounding, but my face calm. I had practiced this moment in my mind 100 times, but I never thought it would happen like this, never thought they would find out by accident. The documents were clear as day. 3 weeks ago, I had closed on a 2-bedroom condominium in Columbus, about 45 minutes from here. The papers showed everything: the purchase price, the closing date, my signature on every line. I had used most of my savings and taken out a small loan, but I had done it. I had bought myself a way out. "Mom," Brian finally spoke, his voice strange and tight. "What is this? Why did you buy an apartment?" I set down my teacup and looked at my son. "Because I am moving out in 6 weeks," I said simply. "I have already started packing." Lauren's face transformed in an instant. The shock melted into something hard and angry. "Moving out?" she repeated, her voice rising. "This is your house. Where are we supposed to go?" I took a breath. "Brian, Lauren, you moved in here 4 years ago. Do you remember? It was supposed to be temporary. Lauren had just lost her marketing position, and you said you needed 3 months to get back on your feet. That was 4 years ago." Brian opened his mouth, but I kept going. "In those 4 years, you have not paid rent, not once. You have not contributed to utilities or groceries. I have been supporting both of you completely. I paid off your car loan last year when you said you were struggling. I covered your health insurance premiums. I bought your clothes, your food, everything. We were going to pay you back," Brian said weakly. "When?" I asked. "When were you going to pay me back, Brian? You just tried to take my credit card to buy a $30,000 refrigerator. Where exactly was the money for paying me back going to come from?" Lauren's tears started then, sudden and dramatic. "Oh my God, Benita, I am so sorry. We have been terrible. We have been so selfish. I did not realize how much we were taking advantage of you." Brian joined in immediately. "Mom, she is right. We have been blind. We have been treating you like a bank instead of a mother. Please, give us another chance. We will change everything. I will get a better job. Lauren will go back to work. We will start paying rent." I wanted to believe them. God help me. I wanted to believe my son, but I had heard these promises before. Every time I had brought up their lack of contribution, they had promised change. Nothing ever changed. Lauren crossed the room and hugged me, something she rarely did. "You are the best mother-in-law ever," she said into my shoulder. "Please do not leave us. We need you. We will be lost without you." Brian came over too, his eyes wet. "Dad would not want us to split up the family," he said, and that hit me right in the heart. My husband Robert had died 7 years ago, and Brian knew exactly how to use that memory. I felt my resolve weakening. Maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe they really would change this time. They looked so sincere, so sorry. "I will think about it," I heard myself say. "I will delay the move for now." Lauren smiled through her tears. "Thank you, Benita. You will not regret this." As they left the room to give me space, I saw it. Just for a second, but I saw it. Lauren glanced at Brian, and he glanced back. It was quick, but there was something in that look. Something that made my stomach turn. I sat back down and looked at the documents still scattered on my coffee table. Had I just made a terrible mistake? Had I given them exactly what they wanted by showing my hand too soon? I picked up my teacup with shaking hands and wondered what I had just done. 2 weeks passed, and I started to think maybe I had been wrong. Maybe they really were changing. Brian and Lauren transformed into model house guests. They cooked dinner every night, elaborate meals that filled the house with good smells. They cleaned without being asked, vacuumed, did laundry, scrubbed bathrooms. Lauren even weeded my garden, something she had never shown the slightest interest in before. Brian brought home job applications, spread them across the kitchen table, made phone calls. Lauren updated her resume, sent out dozens of emails, talked about going back into marketing. They both thanked me constantly, told me how much they appreciated everything I had done for them. I felt guilty for doubting them. Maybe they really had needed this wake-up call. Maybe finding those documents had shocked them into reality. I started thinking about the condo in Columbus, about how much money I would lose if I sold it now. The real estate market had shifted, and I would take a loss. But maybe keeping the family together was worth it. Maybe Robert would have wanted me to give them another chance. Brian took me to lunch on a Wednesday, just the two of us. We went to the little Italian place downtown where his father used to take us for anniversaries. Brian ordered my favorite pasta, remembered that I liked extra bread. He held my hand across the table. "Mom, I want to thank you again for not giving up on us," he said. "I know we did not deserve another chance, but you gave us one anyway. That is who you are. That is why Dad loved you so much." I squeezed his hand back, tears in my eyes. I loved this boy. I had raised him, nursed him through illnesses, cheered at his baseball games, helped him with homework. How could I give up on him? "Lauren is planning a family dinner for Friday," he continued. "She wants to celebrate our new beginning. She is really trying, Mom. I think this time is different." Friday came, and Lauren cooked a feast. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, homemade rolls. She set the table with my good china, the set that had belonged to my mother. She even lit candles. It felt like Thanksgiving. Before we ate, I excused myself to go upstairs to my bedroom. I wanted to wear my mother's pearls, the ones she had given me on my wedding day. They were in my jewelry box in my dresser drawer. I opened the drawer and reached for the wooden box. It felt lighter than usual. I lifted the lid, and my heart stopped. Several pieces were missing. My grandmother's ruby ring, the one I had promised to leave to Brian someday. The gold bracelet Robert had given me on our 20th anniversary. A pair of diamond earrings that had been my mother's. All gone. I checked the drawer, thinking maybe they had fallen out. Nothing. I checked the other drawers, my nightstand, under the bed. Nothing. I went downstairs slowly, the jewelry box in my hands. Brian and Lauren were at the table, smiling and waiting. I set the box down in the center of the table, right next to the pot roast. "Where is my jewelry?" I asked. Their faces changed, the smiles sliding off like masks. "What?" Lauren said. "My grandmother's ruby ring, my gold bracelet, my mother's earrings. They are gone." "Where are they?" Brian stood up. "Mom, what are you talking about? Are you sure they are not just misplaced?" "I do not misplace things," I said. "They were in my jewelry box, and now they are gone. Someone took them." Lauren's voice became gentle, syrupy. "Benita, honey, maybe you moved them and forgot. It happens. At your age, it is completely normal to forget where you put things. At my age?" I stared at her. I am 72, Lauren, not 90. My memory is fine. Someone stole my jewelry. That is a serious accusation, Brian said, his voice going cold. Are you saying we stole from you? I am saying my jewelry is missing, and you two are the only other people who live here. The dinner dissolved into an argument. Lauren's tears, Brian's anger, my frustration. They kept suggesting I had forgotten, that I was confused, that maybe I should see a doctor about my memory. The more they said it, the angrier I became. I knew what I knew. Those pieces had been in my jewelry box, and now they were gone. Finally, they stormed off to their bedroom, leaving me alone with the cold pot roast and flickering candles. I sat at the table for a long time, staring at the empty jewelry box. The pearls I was wearing suddenly felt heavy around my neck. The next morning, I woke up early and drove to my bank. I needed to check my accounts, needed to see if anything else was wrong. The bank manager, a kind woman named Susan who had known me for years, took one look at my face and pulled me into her office. "Benita, I am so glad you are here," she said, closing the door. "I have been trying to reach you. We have a serious problem." My chest tightened. What kind of problem? Susan pulled up my accounts on her computer, then turned the screen toward me. 3 new credit cards have been opened in your name in the past 2 months. I leaned forward, confused. I did not open any new credit cards. I know, Susan said gently. That is the problem. Someone opened them using your information. Benita, you have $47,000 in debt that you did not authorize. The room seemed to tilt. $47,000? That is impossible. Susan printed out the statements and handed them to me. I scanned the charges, my hands shaking. Jewelry stores, luxury furniture, designer handbags, expensive restaurants, spa treatments. Day after day of charges, thousands and thousands of dollars. The bank flagged these as suspicious, Susan continued. I pulled the original credit card applications. The signatures are forged. They are close to your signature, but not quite right. And look at this. She pulled up security footage on her computer. It showed a woman at a bank counter, filling out paperwork. She wore a wig and large sunglasses. But the shape of her face, the way she moved her hands, it was familiar. That is Lauren, I whispered. That is my daughter-in-law. Susan nodded grimly. I thought it might be. Benita, this is fraud. Identity theft. You need to file a police report immediately. I will, I said, but my mind was racing. What does this mean for my credit score? Susan's face told me everything before she spoke. Your credit score has dropped significantly, from 750 down to 580. Benita, I have to tell you something else. Your condo purchase loan, the one for furniture and moving costs. It has been flagged for review because of this credit drop. Can they deny it? I asked, though I already knew the answer. They might. Or they might approve it at a much higher interest rate. Either way, this is going to make things very difficult for you. I sat back in the chair, the full weight of the situation crashing down on me. They had not changed at all. The cooking, the cleaning, the apologies, all of it had been an act to buy time while they stole even more from me. And now I was trapped. I could not afford to move. I could not afford to get away from them. They had made sure of that. Susan reached across the desk and took my hand. Benita, you need to get help. This is elder abuse. This is serious. I know, I said quietly. I know. I drove home in a daze. The bank statements on the passenger seat, like evidence of my own stupidity. How had I let this happen? How had I been so blind? 3 days later, I had worked up the courage to confront them. I printed out all the bank statements, highlighted the charges, organized everything into a folder. I waited until after breakfast, when they were both sitting in the living room on their phones. I dropped the folder on the coffee table between them. "Explain this," I said. Lauren picked it up, flipped through the pages, her face perfectly blank. "What is this supposed to be?" "Credit card statements. For cards that were opened in my name without my permission. Cards that you used to spend $47,000. "That is ridiculous," Lauren said, tossing the folder back down. "This is identity theft, Benita. Someone stole your information. This happens all the time. You need to file a police report against whoever did this." "It was you," I said. "The bank has security footage." Brian stood up, his face red. "Mom, this is insane. You are accusing my wife of being a criminal? Do you hear yourself?" "I have proof," I said. Lauren pulled out her phone. "Then I will call our lawyer. This is defamation. I have witnesses who can prove I was somewhere else when these cards were opened. If you keep making these accusations, I will sue you." The threat hung in the air. I had not expected that. I had expected denial, maybe anger, but not a counterattack. Brian put his arm around Lauren, and they both stared at me like I was the enemy. The argument escalated. They raised their voices. I raised mine. The neighbors probably heard every word. Finally, I told them I was calling the police. I did call. An officer came out that afternoon, a young man who looked barely old enough to be out of school. I showed him everything: the statements, the security footage from the bank, the missing jewelry. He took notes, asked questions, but his face stayed neutral. "Ma'am, this is a complicated situation," he said finally. "You all live together, which makes it harder to prove. This might be more of a civil matter than a criminal one. You should probably get a lawyer who specializes in family fraud cases." "But I have proof," I said. "I understand, and we will file a report. But these cases can be difficult to prosecute, especially within families. I recommend you document everything and consult with an attorney." After he left, I called the bank again. Susan delivered more bad news. The condo loan had been officially denied due to my credit issues. If I could not close on the condo in 3 weeks, I would lose my deposit of $20,000. $20,000. Money I did not have lying around. It was tied up in retirement accounts, and if I pulled it out early, I would face penalties and taxes. I called the real estate agent, hoping for an extension, but the sellers were firm: close on time or lose the deposit. I sat at my kitchen table that night, calculator in front of me, trying to figure out how to come up with the money. I thought about my mother's antique china collection, still in the cabinet in the dining room, and whatever jewelry I had left. Maybe I could sell them, raise enough cash to save the deposit, and prove I could furnish the condo without a loan. The next morning, I carefully packed up the china and the remaining jewelry. I drove to an antique dealer across town, a reputable man named George, who I had bought from and sold to over the years. He was honest, knowledgeable, someone I trusted. George examined the china first, turning each piece carefully in his hands. "Beautiful set," he said. "Your mother had excellent taste." Then he moved to the jewelry. He picked up a brooch, held it under his magnifying glass, and frowned. "Benita, where did you get this piece?" "It was my mother's," I said. "It has been in my family for years." He set it down and picked up another piece. Same frown. He looked at me over his glasses. "Benita, I hate to tell you this, but several of these pieces are fakes. Good copies, professional quality, but not originals." My mouth went dry. What do you mean, fakes? He showed me under the magnifying glass. See the clasp here? This is modern manufacturing. The original would have had hand-forged details. And this stone, it is cubic zirconia, not diamond. Someone replaced the real pieces with replicas. I sat down heavily on the stool by his counter. When? How? George pulled up his records on his computer. Actually, I might be able to help you with that. He clicked through files. Here. 3 months ago, someone brought in pieces matching your description. Same woman sold them to me for $8,000 cash. She gave the name Beth Wilson. Beth Wilson. Close to Benita Wilson. My hands were shaking. Do you have security footage? George nodded and pulled it up. There on the screen was Lauren, wearing different hair and different makeup, but definitely Lauren. She was smiling as George counted out cash, handing over my family heirlooms like they were nothing. I need a copy of that, I said quietly. George burned it to a disk for me without another word. I think I knew then that he understood what was happening. I drove home in shock. 3 months ago, Lauren had been stealing from me and replacing items with fakes for at least 3 months, probably longer. How much had she taken? How long had this been going on? I thought about all the times I had noticed something looked slightly different, thought I was imagining things, told myself I was being silly. I had been living with a thief, and I had convinced myself I was paranoid. When I got home, Lauren was in the living room redecorating. New furniture had been delivered, expensive pieces that made my old couch and chairs look shabby in comparison. She was directing 2 delivery men where to place everything. Surprise, she said cheerfully when she saw me. I thought the living room needed an upgrade. Do you love it? I looked at the furniture, then at the tags still attached. The prices made my stomach drop. Where did this come from? I asked. I ordered it, she said brightly. It just got delivered today. Is it not gorgeous? I pulled out my phone and checked the fraudulent credit card statements Susan had given me. There it was. The furniture store, the exact amount, the purchase date from 2 weeks ago. You bought this with one of the credit cards you opened in my name, I said. Lauren's smile did not fade. Oh, Benita, you are still on about that. I told you, that was identity theft. Someone else did that. Maybe you should call the credit card company again. I saw you, I said. I saw the security footage from when you opened the accounts. Brian walked in from the kitchen. What is going on? Your wife has been stealing from me for months, I said, my voice rising. She replaced my jewelry with fakes and sold the real pieces. She opened credit cards in my name. She is spending money that I will have to pay back. And you, I turned to Brian, you are helping her. You have to be. You have been living here, watching this happen. Mom, calm down, Brian said, but his voice had an edge to it. You are being paranoid. You are making wild accusations. Maybe you really should see a doctor about your memory problems. Lauren nodded, her expression concerned. Sweetheart, we love you, but you are scaring us. These delusions, these accusations, they are not normal. We think you need help. I stared at them both. They were gaslighting me. Actually, genuinely gaslighting me. Trying to make me think I was crazy, that I was imagining things, that I was the problem. They were setting up a narrative that I was senile, incompetent, unable to care for myself, and I realized with cold clarity what they were doing. They were building a case to have me declared mentally unfit, and if they succeeded, they could take control of everything. My house, my money, my entire life. I picked up my purse and walked out the front door without another word. I got in my car and drove to my friend Margaret's house. Margaret who I had taught with for 30 years before we both retired. Margaret, who knew me better than almost anyone. I told her everything. She listened, her face growing more and more horrified. When I finished, she grabbed my hands. Benita, you need a lawyer. Right now, today. This is elder abuse, and it is only going to get worse. I know, I said. I know. But even as I said it, I felt a crushing weight of despair. I was trapped in my own house with two people who were systematically destroying my life. I had no money to escape. My credit was ruined. I had lost my jewelry, would lose my condo deposit, and now they were trying to paint me as mentally incompetent. How had my life come to this? How had my own son become someone I did not recognize? Margaret made me tea, and we sat in her kitchen for a long time. Finally, she said, "You are going to fight back, right? You are not going to let them win?" I looked at her, this woman who had been my friend for decades, and I made a decision. I am going to fight, I said. I do not know how yet, but I am going to fight. 1 week later, my situation had gone from bad to worse. The condo was gone. I had lost the $20,000 deposit because I could not come up with the cash to close. My credit score was still in ruins. The fraud investigation was ongoing, but moving at the pace of a glacier. My valuable heirlooms were gone, sold and scattered to who knows where, and I was still living in my own home, feeling like a prisoner. Brian sat me down on a Monday morning. His face was serious, concerned, the way a parent looks at a troubled child. "Mom, we need to talk about your health," he said. "I am fine," I replied, my guard immediately up. "You are not fine. Lauren and I have been really worried about you. The accusations, the paranoia, forgetting where you put your jewelry. We think something is going on, something medical. There is nothing wrong with my mind, Brian." "That is what everyone says, Mom. Look, I made an appointment for you with a doctor, a specialist, Dr. Patricia Holloway. She works with older patients, helps evaluate cognitive function." "I do not need a cognitive evaluation." Brian's voice hardened just slightly. "Mom, you are going. We need documentation that you are okay. If you refuse, that just makes us worry more. The appointment is Wednesday at 2. Lauren came into the room, right on cue. "We just want to make sure you are okay, Benita. It is because we love you. If there is a problem, we can get you help. If there is not, then we will all have peace of mind." What is wrong with that? Everything was wrong with it, but I could not articulate why without sounding exactly like what they were accusing me of being, paranoid and irrational. On Tuesday, I called Margaret and told her about the appointment. She was quiet for a long moment. "Benita, I think you need to get your own lawyer before this appointment. I have a really bad feeling about this." "I do too," I admitted. Margaret gave me the name of an attorney who specialized in elder law. I called and left a message, but the office said he was in court all week and could not see me until Monday. The appointment with Dr. Holloway was Wednesday. I would have to go in alone, without legal advice, without backup. I tried to find my important documents that night. My birth certificate, my passport, my will, the deed to my house. They should have been in my file cabinet in the study, where I had always kept them. The drawer was empty. My heart racing, I searched the house. It took me 2 hours, but finally I found them. They were in Brian and Lauren's bedroom closet, tucked into a box behind Lauren's shoes. Along with the documents, I found bank statements. Bank statements showing $8,000 deposited into Lauren's personal account 3 months ago. The exact amount George the antique dealer had told me someone got for my jewelry. And I found printed emails, emails between Lauren and someone named Stacy discussing what they called the plan. The emails were vague but clear enough. References to paperwork, to medical documentation, to moving timelines. One email from Stacy said, "Once we get the evaluation done, you can move forward with the guardianship petition. It should not take more than 3 months total." Guardianship petition. They were planning to have me declared legally incompetent and get guardianship over me, which would give them control of my finances, my property, my healthcare decisions, everything. My hands shaking, I took pictures of everything with my phone. Every document, every bank statement, every email. Then I carefully put everything back exactly where I had found it. They could not know that I knew. Wednesday came. Brian drove me to the appointment, chatting cheerfully about nothing. The medical building was nice, professional looking. The waiting room had comfortable chairs and soft music playing. And sitting at the reception desk was a woman I recognized from one of those printed emails. Stacy, Lauren's friend from college. "Benita Wilson," Stacy said with a warm smile that did not reach her eyes. "Dr. Holloway will see you now." Dr. Patricia Holloway came out to greet me. She was younger than I expected, professionally dressed, with a kind face. She led me back to her office and gestured for me to sit. "So, Benita, your son and daughter-in-law are concerned about some memory issues you have been having. Why do not we just chat for a bit, and I will ask you some questions? There is nothing to be nervous about." I decided to play along. I needed to know what they were planning. So I answered her questions, making myself seem just slightly confused. I missed a few details on purpose, hesitated on dates, acted like I was struggling to remember things that I remembered perfectly. Dr. Holloway made notes, nodding sympathetically. She used phrases like cognitive decline and age-related memory issues. She talked about the importance of having support systems in place. She never once said I was incompetent, but she danced around it, building a narrative. And the whole time, I had my phone in my pocket, recording everything. The appointment lasted an hour. When it was done, Brian was waiting for me in the lobby. He and Dr. Holloway spoke quietly near the reception desk. I pretended to look at a magazine but strained to hear. "I can have the paperwork ready by Friday," Dr. Holloway said quietly. "Then you can proceed with the guardianship petition. It should be fairly straightforward with this documentation." "Thank you, Doctor," Brian said. "This is really hard for us, but we know it is what is best for her." I felt sick. Friday was 2 days away. They were moving fast. In the car on the way home, Brian was gentle, almost condescending. "Do not worry, Mom. We are going to take care of you. You do not need to stress about anything anymore. Lauren and I will handle everything." I looked out the window and said nothing. But my mind was racing. I had 2 days. 2 days to figure out how to stop them. 2 days to save myself. That night, after Brian and Lauren went to bed, I sat in my room and went through everything I had documented. The photos of the stolen documents, the bank statements showing fraud, the security footage from George's shop, the emails about the plan, the recording from Dr. Holloway's office. I thought about my nephew Daniel, my late brother's son. He was a lawyer in Cincinnati, about 2 hours away. We had not been particularly close in recent years, just Christmas cards and occasional phone calls. But he was family, and more importantly, he was someone Brian and Lauren did not know I had regular contact with. At 11 at night, I sent Daniel an email with all the documentation attached. The subject line was simple: "I need help." He called me at 7 the next morning. "Aunt Benita, I read everything. We need to talk. Can you get to a phone where you can speak freely? I am in my bedroom with the door locked. I said. His voice was serious, angry even. Aunt Benita, this is elder abuse. This is fraud. What they are trying to do with this guardianship, it is illegal. We need to act fast. Today. What do I do? I asked. I have a colleague in Columbus who specializes in elder law. I am calling her as soon as we hang up. We are going to file for an emergency protective order. We are going to contact Adult Protective Services. And we are going to stop this guardianship petition before it gets filed. But I need you to do exactly what I say. Can you do that? Yes, I said. Yes, I can. For the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny spark of hope. Daniel worked fast. By noon on Thursday, he had everything in motion. His colleague, an elder law attorney named Jennifer Walsh, had reviewed all my documentation. She was horrified and furious in equal measure. I have been practicing elder law for 15 years, Jennifer told me over the phone, and this is one of the most calculated cases I have seen. They have been planning this for months. She explained what would happen next. She was filing for an emergency restraining order against both Brian and Lauren. She was contacting the Adult Protective Services Division to report elder abuse. She was notifying the Police Fraud Division about the credit card fraud and theft. And most importantly, she was arranging for me to get a real psychiatric evaluation from an independent doctor to counter whatever fake report Dr. Holloway was planning to submit. But there is something I need you to do, Jennifer said. Tonight, Brian and Lauren are going to try to get you to sign documents. Do not sign anything. No matter what they say, no matter how they pressure you, do not put your pen to paper. Can you do that? I can, I said, though my voice shook. And tomorrow morning, we have an emergency hearing scheduled with a judge. Daniel and I will be there. So will a caseworker from Adult Protective Services. We are going to get you protected, Benita, but you need to hold on for one more night. One more night. I could do that. I spent the afternoon in my room packing a small bag. Clothes, medications, important papers that I had managed to retrieve from Brian and Lauren's closet when they were out. I heard them downstairs, talking and laughing. Lauren was on the phone, her voice carrying up the stairs. She was talking about renovations, about paint colors, about furniture, talking about my house like it was already hers. At one point I heard her say, "Once she is in Shady Pines, we can finally live our lives." Shady Pines, a nursing home about 30 miles away. They had already picked out where they were going to put me. Evening came. Brian called me down for a family meeting. I walked downstairs slowly, my heart pounding. They were both in the living room, sitting on the expensive furniture Lauren had bought with my stolen credit. A stack of papers sat on the coffee table. "Mom, sit down," Brian said, patting the couch next to him. I sat in the armchair across from them instead. "So," Brian began, "we've been thinking a lot about your situation, about how to best help you, and we have talked to a lawyer, gotten some advice about how to make things easier for everyone." Lauren picked up the papers. "These are just formalities," she said sweetly. "Just some documents that will give Brian and me the authority to help manage your affairs. Medical decisions, financial stuff, all the things that are getting too confusing for you to handle alone." I looked at the stack. Power of attorney forms, durable medical power of attorney, authorization to access bank accounts, permission to sell property, and at the bottom, I saw it. Admission forms for Shady Pines Nursing and Rehabilitation Center. "What is that last one?" I asked, pointing. "Oh," Lauren said, barely glancing at it. "That is just information about a lovely care facility. We went and toured it yesterday. You would love it there, Benita. They have activities, great food, nursing staff available all the time. You would be so comfortable." "You want to put me in a nursing home," I said. We want to make sure you are safe and cared for, Brian corrected. The doctor said you are having cognitive issues. This is not something we decided lightly. This is what is best for you. No, I said simply. The room went very quiet. Mom, Brian said, his voice taking on an edge. You do not really have a choice here. Dr. Holloway's report says you are not competent to make these decisions anymore. We have a legal obligation to step in. Lauren leaned forward, her smile still in place but her eyes hard. We are trying to do this the easy way, Benita. You can sign these papers and make this simple, or we can do it the hard way through the courts. Either way, this is happening. I picked up the pen from the coffee table. They both watched me eagerly. I looked at the papers, then looked up at them, and for the first time in weeks, I smiled. No, I said again. Brian's face darkened. Mom, you do not understand. You do not get to say no. Dr. Holloway's report clearly states that you are experiencing significant cognitive decline. You need help. We are providing that help. Sign the papers. Dr. Holloway, I said slowly, is not a psychiatrist. She is a licensed social worker. And Stacy, her receptionist, is Lauren's college roommate. I know about the plan. I know about everything. The color drained from Lauren's face. What are you talking about? I know about the fake evaluation. I know about the emails between you and Stacy. I know about the guardianship petition you plan to file tomorrow. I know about the credit cards, the jewelry, the furniture. I know all of it. Brian tried to bluster. Mom, you are confused. You are not making sense. The doorbell rang. I stood up. That would be Detective Morrison from the Fraud Division. Right on time. I walked to the front door and opened it. 2 police detectives stood on my porch. Behind them was a woman with a briefcase who introduced herself as the caseworker from Adult Protective Services. And behind her, tall and reassuring, was my nephew Daniel. Hello, Brian. Hello, Lauren, I said, turning back to them. I would like you to meet some people. What happened next was like something out of a movie, except it was my real life, my living room, my son being read his rights. Detective Morrison and his partner, Detective Sarah Chen, came inside. The Adult Protective Services caseworker, a woman named Angela Martinez, followed. Daniel came last, carrying his briefcase, looking every inch the lawyer he was. Brian and Lauren sat frozen on the couch as Detective Morrison introduced himself and explained why they were there. Investigation of identity theft, elder abuse, fraud, and conspiracy. The detectives asked to interview Brian and Lauren separately. Lauren immediately said she wanted a lawyer. Brian hesitated, then agreed to talk. They took Brian into the kitchen. I sat in the living room with Daniel while Detective Chen stayed with Lauren, who sat rigid and silent on the couch, her earlier confidence completely gone. Angela Martinez began documenting the house, taking photos, making notes about the expensive furniture and clothing that clearly belonged to Brian and Lauren. Through the kitchen door, I could hear Brian's voice rising and falling. I could not make out words, but I could hear the tone changing from defensive to desperate. After 45 minutes, the detectives came back. Detective Morrison's face was grim. "We are going to need both of you to come down to the station," he said to Brian and Lauren. "We have some additional questions." "Are we under arrest?" Lauren asked, her voice tight. "Not at this time," Detective Chen said, "but we strongly encourage you to cooperate with this investigation." Daniel stepped forward then. He was holding several documents. "I am Daniel Crawford, attorney representing Benita Wilson. I am serving you both with an emergency restraining order granted this afternoon by Judge Patricia Harris. You are both required to vacate this residence immediately and maintain a distance of at least 500 feet from Miss Wilson at all times." He handed the papers to Brian, whose hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped them. "You have 2 hours to pack essential belongings," Daniel continued. "A police officer will supervise to ensure there are no further incidents. Anything you cannot pack in 2 hours can be retrieved at a later date under police supervision." Lauren finally broke. She started crying, but these were not the manipulative tears I had seen before. These were tears of panic, of someone whose carefully constructed plans were collapsing. She turned to Brian. "This was your idea," she said, her voice rising. "You said she would never find out. You said she was too trusting, too old to figure it out." Brian's face went red. "My idea? You are the one who got greedy. You are the one who wanted that $30,000 refrigerator. If you had just been patient, we could have kept this going for years." And there it was. They turned on each other, right there in my living room, each trying to shift blame, each trying to minimize their own role. They had been a united front against me. But the moment consequences appeared, their partnership dissolved. Detective Morrison let them argue for a minute, his hand resting on the notebook where he was writing down everything they said. Then he interrupted. "We have security footage from 3 different banks showing Lauren Wilson opening credit cards using Benita Wilson's identity. We have footage from an antique dealer showing Lauren Wilson selling jewelry under a false name. We have bank records showing deposits into Lauren Wilson's personal account, matching the sale price of those items. We have emails discussing plans to fraudulently obtain guardianship. And we have a recording of a fake medical evaluation conducted by someone not qualified to make psychiatric diagnoses. Would either of you like to add anything to that?" The room went silent. Detective Chen spoke then. "The charges we are looking at include identity theft, which is a felony, elder abuse under Ohio Revised Code, Section 2903.34, fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Combined, you are both looking at potentially 10 to 15 years in prison." Brian turned to me then, his eyes desperate. "Mom, please. I am your son. Please do not do this. We can fix this. I will pay everything back. Just please drop the charges." I looked at my son, this man I had raised, this man who had tried to steal my entire life from me. I wanted to feel something, sadness maybe, or regret, but all I felt was tired. "You stopped being my son," I said quietly, "when you decided to destroy me to enrich yourself." Lauren tried a different approach. "Benita, please, I am sorry. I have problems, mental health issues. I need help, not prison. Please, I am begging you. You should have thought about that before you stole from me, before you tried to have me declared incompetent, before you picked out a nursing home to warehouse me in so you could take my house." The police supervised while Brian and Lauren packed. They filled suitcases with clothes, toiletries, electronics. Lauren tried to pack some of the expensive furniture, but Daniel stopped her. "That furniture was purchased with funds obtained through fraud. It is evidence and will remain here." 2 hours later, they were gone. 2 police cars drove them to separate hotels, as the restraining order required them to stay away from each other as well. The house was finally quiet. Daniel stayed with me that night. We ordered pizza and sat in my kitchen, and I told him stories about his father, my brother, who had died 10 years ago. We talked about family, about what family means, about how blood does not always equal loyalty. "You did the right thing," Daniel said. "I know it does not feel like it right now, but you did." "I know," I said, "but it still hurts." Friday morning came too soon. We had the emergency hearing at 9 in the morning. Jennifer Walsh met us at the courthouse, along with Angela Martinez from Adult Protective Services. Brian and Lauren were there too, with their own lawyers now, sitting on opposite sides of the hallway, not looking at each other. Judge Patricia Harris was a stern woman in her 60s who reviewed the evidence with sharp eyes. She looked at the security footage, read the emails, listened to the recording from Dr. Holloway's office. Her expression grew darker with each piece of evidence. "This is one of the most egregious cases of elder abuse I have seen on this bench," she said finally. "Miss Wilson, I am granting all protective orders requested. Brian Wilson and Lauren Wilson are ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from you at all times. All documents they had you sign previously are hereby revoked and declared null and void. I am also ordering the immediate freezing of their bank accounts pending restitution proceedings." She looked at Brian and Lauren. "You should both be ashamed of yourselves. What you attempted to do to this woman, your mother-in-law, is despicable. I am strongly recommending to the prosecutor that charges be filed to the fullest extent of the law." We filed out of the courtroom. In the hallway, the prosecutor approached Jennifer Walsh and asked to speak with me. His name was Thomas Anderson, a middle-aged man with kind eyes. "Miss Wilson, I want you to know we are taking this case very seriously. But I need to tell you something. Lauren Wilson's parents have contacted my office. They are wealthy people from Cleveland, and they are offering a settlement. Full restitution of all funds stolen, plus an additional $200,000 in damages if you agree to drop the criminal charges." He let that sink in for a moment, then continued, "I cannot make this decision for you. The criminal case could take years and would require your testimony multiple times. There is no guarantee of conviction, and even if they are convicted, they might get probation rather than prison time. The civil case to recover your losses could drag on even longer. This settlement would give you immediate restitution and allow you to move on with your life." I sat down on a bench in the hallway. Daniel sat next to me, his hand on my shoulder. "What do you think?" I asked him. "Aunt Benita, whatever you choose, I support you. If you want to see them prosecuted, we will go through the whole process. If you want to take the settlement and be done with them, that is valid too. There is no wrong answer here." I thought about it. I thought about months or years of court appearances, of reliving this over and over, of seeing Brian on the stand. I thought about the possibility that after all that, they might get light sentences. I thought about how much I wanted this to just be over. But I also thought about other people like me, other elderly people being victimized by family members, other people who needed to know this could happen, that they needed to protect themselves. "I will take the settlement," I told the prosecutor. "But I have one condition." "What is that?" "I want the full story documented in the court record. I want it public. I want a written statement from the judge about what they did. Other families need to know this happens. People need to know that sometimes you have to protect yourself even from your own children." The prosecutor nodded. "I can make that happen." The settlement was finalized that afternoon. Full restitution of the $47,000 in fraudulent charges. Return of any items still recoverable, which turned out to be almost nothing. $200,000 in damages for pain and suffering, and a permanent restraining order requiring Brian and Lauren to leave the state of Ohio within 30 days. Any violation of the restraining order would result in automatic criminal prosecution with no possibility of settlement. They signed the papers with their lawyers present. Neither of them looked at me. As we left the courthouse, Jennifer Walsh walked beside me. "You were incredibly brave," she said. "Most people in your situation do not fight back." I did not feel brave. I felt exhausted and sad and relieved all at once. Daniel drove me home. The house felt different now, empty but clean, like a weight had been lifted. He helped me start going through Brian and Lauren's belongings that they had left behind. Most of it was junk, but we found a few more pieces of my jewelry that Lauren had not gotten around to selling yet. That night, I slept in my own bed, in my own house, for the first time in weeks without fear, without listening for footsteps in the hallway, without wondering what they were plotting. It was over. 3 months passed. Fall turned to winter, and I found a new rhythm to my life. The settlement money came through, and I used it wisely. I found a smaller condo in Columbus, nothing fancy but comfortable and manageable. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a little balcony overlooking a park where I could watch children play and dogs run. I bought modest furniture, nothing expensive, nothing I would cry over if something happened to it. My credit score was slowly recovering. The fraud had been documented and reported properly, and the marks on my credit were being removed one by one. It would take time, but Jennifer Walsh assured me that within a year, I would be back to normal. I joined a book club in my new building. 8 women, all around my age, all with stories. I learned that I was not alone. Carol, a cheerful woman with white hair and bright blue eyes, had been financially abused by her daughter. Patricia had been physically abused by her son before she finally got a restraining order. Margaret, my old friend from my teaching days, drove out to visit me every other week, and sometimes I went back to my old neighborhood to visit her. I started volunteering at the community center downtown, teaching adults to read. It turned out I had missed teaching more than I realized. There was something deeply satisfying about helping someone sound out words, about watching comprehension dawn on someone's face as they finished their first full book. I made new friends, real friends, people who valued me for who I was, not for what they could take from me. We had coffee together, went to movies, played cards on Friday nights. My days were full and busy, and mine. I replaced some of my mother's jewelry with new pieces. Not expensive ones, just things I liked. A simple silver bracelet, a pair of earrings with blue stones. They would not have the history that my grandmother's ruby ring had, but maybe that was okay. Maybe I could start new traditions instead of mourning lost ones. One afternoon in November, I was sitting on my balcony with a cup of tea, wrapped in a blanket against the chill, when my doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and froze. It was Brian. He stood in the hallway, looking thin and tired. His clothes were wrinkled, and he had dark circles under his eyes. He was violating the restraining order just by being here. I should have called the police immediately. That was what the restraining order was for, what the lawyers had told me to do, but I hesitated. This was still my son. Part of me still remembered the little boy who had cried when his goldfish died, who had hugged me so tight on his first day of school, who had held my hand at his father's funeral. I opened the door, but left the chain on. "Brian, you are not supposed to be here." "I know, Mom. I know. But I had to see you. I had to tell you something." "What?" "Lauren and I are divorced. She blamed me for losing the settlement. I blamed her for pushing too far. We have not spoken in 2 months. And, Mom, I lost everything. My friends do not want anything to do with me. I had to move to Kentucky to find work. I am living in a tiny apartment and working at a warehouse. I have nothing." I did not say anything, just waited. "I came here to say I am sorry. Really, truly sorry. Not sorry I got caught. Sorry for what I did. I was weak, and I let Lauren convince me that we deserved your money, that you owed us somehow. I was wrong. About everything. His voice broke. I lost my son in you. You were the best mother anyone could have asked for, and I threw that away. I threw you away for money that was not even mine. And now I have nothing. No wife, no mother, no friends, no respect. I have nothing, and it is all my fault. I looked at him through the gap in the door. He was crying now, real tears, ugly crying. Part of me wanted to comfort him, the way I had comforted him through 100 childhood disappointments. But I was not his mother anymore, not in the way I used to be. He had made sure of that. Brian, I do not know if I can forgive you, I said quietly. You did not just steal money. You tried to steal my dignity, my independence, my sanity. You were going to lock me away in a nursing home and forget about me. You were going to let me think I was losing my mind. Do you understand what that did to me? I know, he whispered. I know, and I will never forgive myself. You violated the restraining order by coming here, I continued. I should call the police right now. They would arrest you, and you would be prosecuted. Is that what you want? No, he said, but I needed you to know that I am sorry. That is all. I will leave now. I will never bother you again. I just needed you to know. He turned to go, and I surprised myself by speaking again. Brian. He turned back, hope flickering in his eyes. If you really want to make amends, do it by leaving and respecting the court order. Do it by becoming a better person, not by asking me to forgive you before you have earned it. How do I earn it? He asked. I do not know if you can, I said honestly. But if you really have changed, if you really want to be someone different, then show it. Get therapy. Work on yourself. Become someone who would never do what you did. Do not do it for me. Do it for yourself. And in 5 years, if you have really changed, if you have done the work to become better, then maybe we can have coffee. Maybe. 5 years? His voice was so small. If you have earned it, I said. That is all I can offer you, Brian. Maybe. Someday. If you prove you have changed. He nodded slowly. Thank you, Mom. That is more than I deserve. It probably is, I agreed. Now go, before I change my mind and call the police. He left. I closed the door, locked it, put the chain back on. Then I stood there, leaning against the door, and cried, not for him, but for the relationship we used to have, for the little boy he used to be, for the mother I used to be, who trusted blindly and loved without boundaries. But I did not call him back. I did not undo the restraining order. I did not offer false comfort or easy forgiveness, because I had learned the hard way that love without respect is not really love at all. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is set a boundary and hold it, no matter how much it hurts. I made myself another cup of tea and sat back down on the balcony. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. In the park below, a grandmother was pushing a little girl on a swing, both of them laughing. I thought about what I had survived, about how close I had come to losing everything, about how I had almost let guilt and obligation blind me to abuse. My late husband, Robert, had always told me to stand up for myself, to know my worth. After he died, I had forgotten that lesson. I had let loneliness make me vulnerable, had let the desire to keep my family together override my instinct for self-preservation. But I had remembered in time. I had fought back, and I had won. I thought about the women in my book club, about Carol and Patricia and the others. We all had stories of family members who had taken advantage, who had mistaken kindness for weakness, who had thought elderly meant helpless. We had all survived, had all rebuilt our lives. I picked up my phone and texted the group chat. "Who wants to come over for dinner tomorrow? I am making pot roast." Within minutes, 4 women had responded yes. We would sit around my small dining table, eat good food, tell our stories, laugh at the absurdity of it all. We would remind each other that we were strong, that we had value, that our lives were not over just because we had gray hair and retirement accounts. The next morning, I sat down at my computer and started writing. I wrote about everything that had happened. Every detail, every emotion, every moment of fear and doubt and eventual triumph. I wrote it all down, and when I was done, I had a 20-page document that I titled "Protecting Yourself: A True Story of Elder Abuse and Survival." I sent it to Jennifer Walsh, my attorney. She read it and called me immediately. "Benita, this is powerful. Would you be willing to let me share this with other attorneys who work in elder law? And maybe with some advocacy groups? People need to read this." "Yes," I said. "Share it. That is why I wrote it." Over the following weeks, my story spread. It was published on websites dedicated to elder rights. It was shared in support groups. I started getting emails from people thanking me, telling me their own stories, asking for advice. Some of them were other elderly people. Some were adult children who had watched their parents be victimized and did not know how to help. I answered every email. I shared what I had learned. I told them about the warning signs. Family members who isolated elderly relatives, who took control of finances gradually, who dismissed concerns as confusion or memory problems, who moved in temporarily and never left. I told them about resources: elder law attorneys, adult protective services, support groups. I told them that it was never too late to fight back, that being elderly did not mean being helpless. 4 months after Brian's visit, I got an email from a woman named Susan in California. She was 75 and had been living with her daughter and son-in-law for 2 years. She had started noticing the same things I had noticed: missing money, boundary violations, dismissive comments about her age and memory. She had read my story and recognized herself in it. She got a lawyer. She documented everything. She discovered, just as I had, that her daughter had been stealing from her for months. She fought back, and she won. "Thank you," she wrote in her email. "Thank you for being brave enough to share your story. You saved me." I cried when I read that. Happy tears this time. Maybe something good had come from all of this after all. Maybe my pain could help someone else avoid the same suffering. On a cold December morning, I sat in my favorite chair with my tea and looked around my little condo. It was not much. The furniture was second-hand. The carpets were a little worn. The view was nice, but nothing spectacular. But it was mine. Truly, completely mine. No one was going to take it from me. No one was going to make me feel unsafe in my own home ever again. I was 72 years old, living on a budget, starting over in many ways. But I was free. I had my dignity back. I had friends who valued me. I had purpose in my volunteer work. I had peace. I thought about that $30,000 refrigerator that had started everything. If Lauren had not gotten so greedy, if she had not pushed so hard, I might never have shown them the documents about the condo. I might have let things continue. I might have kept making excuses, kept hoping they would change, kept sacrificing myself on the altar of family obligation. That refrigerator, in a strange way, had saved my life. I picked up my phone and looked at my calendar. Tonight was book club. Tomorrow I was volunteering at the literacy center. This weekend, Margaret was driving out and we were going to see a movie. Next month, I was thinking about taking a pottery class that the community center was offering. My life was full. not full of drama or fear or walking on eggshells, full of simple, ordinary, beautiful things. Coffee with friends, books that made me think, helping someone learn to read, the satisfaction of a meal cooked well, the peace of going to bed without fear. I had spent 4 years trying to buy my son's love by letting him take everything from me. It took almost losing myself completely to realize that real love does not cost you your dignity. Real family lifts you up, does not tear you down, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who refuse to value you, even if they are your own blood. I am 72 years old, living in a small condo with secondhand furniture and a limited budget, but I am free. And that freedom, that peace, that sense of safety in my own home is priceless, worth more than any amount of money, more than any relationship built on guilt and obligation rather than mutual respect. I learned that it is never too late to stand up for yourself. That age is not the same as helplessness, that you can love someone from a distance if being close to them is harmful, that boundaries are not cruelty, but necessity, that your worth is not determined by how much you sacrifice or how much you endure. And I learned that sometimes losing everything teaches you what truly matters. I lost my son, at least for now. I lost my family heirlooms. I lost money and time and peace of mind. But I gained myself back, and that, in the end, was the most valuable thing of all. So here I am, on a Tuesday morning in December, sitting in my small apartment with my tea and my freedom. The sun is coming up. The park below is empty, except for one jogger making tracks through the new snow. Somewhere out there, Brian is living his life in Kentucky. Somewhere out there, Lauren is living hers, wherever she ended up. I do not think about them much anymore. I think about tonight's book club, about what I am going to make for dinner. I think about the student at the literacy center who is so close to reading her first chapter book. I think about the pottery class and whether I will be any good at it. I think about ordinary, wonderful, peaceful things. And I am happy. Now I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with someone you love? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting yourself? It is one of the hardest things we ever have to do, but sometimes it is necessary. I would love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please consider giving it a like. It helps others find it. And maybe, like Susan in California, someone else will read it and recognize that they deserve better, that they can fight back, that they are not alone. And if you want to hear more stories about finding strength in difficult situations, about standing up for yourself, about rebuilding after loss, please subscribe. There are so many stories that need to be told, so many people who need to know they are not alone. Finally, please share this story with anyone you think might need to hear it, with elderly friends or relatives who might be in similar situations, with adult children who might not realize what elder abuse looks like, with anyone who needs to be reminded that it is never too late to fight for yourself. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you go forward from this day knowing your worth, protecting your boundaries, and never letting anyone, not even family, make you feel small or helpless or worthless. You are valuable. You are strong. And you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, no matter your age. Take care of yourselves. Be kind to yourselves. And remember that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love yourself enough to walk away.